What up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in, and it's so good to see you. I hope that your week is off to a great start. If it's not, you're in the middle and you're almost done. And if it's great, you're in the middle, all right? You're killing it. There's only more to come, all right? I am so happy to see all of you. Thank you for tuning in from Philly, Chicago, France. Oh, my God, France, too. All of the stories that I bring you today are things that I thought were genuinely funny and would also make you laugh. I want to start today's stream, today's good news in Australia, okay? I have had the pleasure of being in Australia many times, and I have a different, new, and fun experience every time. But there's one thing that I can never get over, really, is I won't even call them the animals because some of it is not animal. Some of it is insect. But there's just the wildlife. The wildlife in Australia is truly wild, top to bottom. Like there are things that are normal there that I think we would genuinely freak out about here in the States. You know, okay. The first story is about the largest male specimen of the world's most venomous spider. It's been found in Australia. And duh. We knew that. We knew that was going to happen. We were sure. I didn't know about this spider at all, and I was sure that this would happen here, right? Someone turned him in. His name is Hercules, which is great. When I was reading about the story, it says that Hercules will contribute to the reptile park's anti-venom program because they turned Hercules into a park when they found him. And that already stopped me in my tracks, if I'm being honest with you. Someone in Australia, a person, found the most venomous spider in the world and the biggest one, and they brought it somewhere. The fact that they engage with it at all, to me, is pretty wild and shows just the ruggedness of the Australian people, how unfazed they are by the biggest and most dangerous of the thing being in their face. If I had met this spider, one of us would die. I guarantee you. That spider or me, one of us would have to go. I don't even know, because I don't know which way to run from a spider, because they look like they can go in all directions just as fast as any other direction, right? But the spider was brought to the reptile park. It was safely captured and handed to the public to undergo milking to extract the venom. So this helps, I suppose, I'm not a scientist, but it sounds like milking the spider for its venom helps with the anti-venom in case people get bit by a spider like this in other places. And I wonder from a wildlife perspective, like if you're that spider, if you're in that sort of family or species, if this is the equivalent to snitching. Do you know what I mean? Because the venom is the secrets. No one's supposed to know what's in the venom. The venom's the weapon. And then you out here not only getting caught, but getting milked of all of your secrets. And then obviously it helps the people. We as people don't want anybody to be injured badly or hurt or maimed for life. But the spider, the snake, whoever, are they like, wow, we thought you were a real one. That's crazy that you just gonna give it all up just because they caught you, you know? Why would you give that venom up? Why wouldn't you just be like, no, I'm not a spider, I'm an ant. I'm just big like that. It's just a thought. Anyway, the male spiders are apparently smaller than the female spiders, and the female spiders are also less venomous. And I don't know. Like when I read the story, I'm not gonna lie, I read the headline, and the first thing I thought when it said the largest male specimen of the world's most poisonous spider, I thought that they had found a spider. This is ignorant of me. I'm fully aware. But truly when I read it, I thought they found the spider with the biggest ding-a-ling that they had ever seen in science. I know that that's not what it is now. I know they meant the whole male, but just the way they worded it was slightly confusing. And it just felt like something that the AP would report on, you know, like the AP does good work. I like what they do, but they feel like the publication, they'll be like, we found a spider that got that thing on them. Right? That's a compelling story. I would read it. I thought I did read it. I also can't believe that Australians are not more fazed by the sort of like insects and by the wildlife going on. Do you know what I mean? Like these are horror movie level animals and insects that you're dealing with, and people really just will come in contact with these and then go to work like nothing happened. Like we in the States have whole movies about giant killer spiders. We have whole movies about like ants that could eat anything. And then you go to Australia and they're like, no, yeah, that does happen here. We live with that all the time. It's not that big of a deal. And then they go about their day. Like what true horror movie did the Brits put Australians through that none of this stuff phases them? You know what I mean? Like I'm not a history buff. I know the Brits did something to everybody per people, did something to every country out there just about, except maybe Ethiopia. I think Ethiopia is like one of the only countries that was never colonized. But said all that to say that the animal situation in Australia is untenable. And I'm proud of them as a people for holding on strong, keeping it together this long. Because my next story also takes place in Australia, is also animal related, okay? Rat plague hits an Australian coastal town and thousands more wash up on shore. Now, this is an important thing. Can you go to the next slide for me with the rats? When I want to be clear about something, even in the headline. It says rat plague hits an Australian coastal town. Now, I live in New York, and some of the people coming into the chat also live in New York, and they're like, what's so special about them? Why are they a plague? I'm used to rats. This is the difference, and I really want you to hear me when I say this, because the biggest difference between a plague and anything else is a plague happens fast. All right. If something is coming right at you very quickly, that's a plague. If you're just dealing with it day to day, that's a problem. Right. So as New Yorkers, we have a rat problem, and it's huge. Don't get me wrong. Anytime I see a rat, I usually see another rat there, if not two, by the next day. Like, we are overrun, but it's a gradual thing. And we also get used to it, just as we move. We look down into the subway tracks, and honestly, when you cannot be touched by the rat, it's not as big of a deal. When you look down the subway tracks and you see a rat, you're like, oh, it's like a little zoo, and then that rat gets up on the platform and you're like, nah, kill it, right? This thing happening to this town right now is I don't know if I would be able to. I don't know if I'd be able to withstand. I have a weak spirit, and I can barely handle the rats in New York. The rats in New York. I don't just have rat stories. I have experiences, and I still have fears. There are things that have happened with rats that I've heard about with my friends. One ran right over my friend's foot, and she was in sandals, and I wanted to cut my foot off for her, right? But you look at something like this story here, and I'll read you a little bit of it right now. It comes from NPR, the article that I'm reading from, and it says that a plague of rats is creating havoc in Corumba. I believe that's how you pronounce the town. A small coastal town in Queensland, Australia, where hordes of rodents are chewing on electrical wires and otherwise eating everything that they can find. And most animals cannot chew through electrical wires and live. Like, you specifically have to hide wires in your home from your dog, your cat. You don't want other things like biting up. You see squirrels all the time be on a power line and start nibbling, and then they just drop, right? So I'm amazed that rats, just as a whole, it doesn't seem to bother them. I guess for them, electricity is just spicy, because they have no problem eating through pipe, eating through wires, or anything. The stench is quite bad, said by, the mayor, who is trying to deal with it. She said that if coastal winds prevail, oh no, it's a man, sorry. If coastal winds prevail, it's still livable. And this is my other issue with the entire story. You shouldn't have to pray for wind. We don't live in that time. Like, in 2024, you shouldn't have to hope, and you shouldn't have to put hope and wind in the same sentence. You know what I mean? Like, if we're in medieval times, if we're in the year 204, then yes, hopefully the wind will go that way so we can go that way, or hopefully the wind blows this way so that the fire doesn't reach our town. But in our present year of 2024, which is just kicking off, we still got a fresh start. A lot of us are still going to the gym. In a world like that, I would pray that we don't have to pray that the wind does something specific. But that's where we are. The rural town isn't alone. Other parts of Western Queensland are also enduring a plague of native long-haired rats, whose population exploded after copious rainfall boosted plant vegetation across hundreds of miles in the inland outback. And that's also scary. The fact that it just took a little bit extra grass and now you are overrun. Completely overrun. And they don't care. I've seen rats like this, and once again, it's a plague when it comes quickly. It's a problem when it comes slowly. So, like, just as an example, let's say you're a lawyer and you make good money and you have some deadbeat cousins, and every once in a while they ask you for some money. And maybe they do it a little bit frequently, but it's just three of them, and they come and they go and they come and they go. That's manageable. You can work in some here's a little something with some no's in there. But if you get drafted to the NFL on national TV, and now you have deadbeat cousins coming out of the woodwork, that's a plague. That's a plague of deadbeats. It's also distressing when somebody asks you for, like, you ever have somebody ask you for, like, an incredibly specific amount of money? Actually, can you do me a favor and put in the chat the most specific amount of money you've ever been asked for? Because I've had people ask me for like $284, and I'm like, that's not. It's enough. It's enough for some things, and it's not enough for everything almost. So then I don't know where we're getting $284 from. And I would even ask, I was like, why why do you need 284 specifically? You didn't just ask me for the $3. It was almost like they didn't want more. But they were like, if I only ask you for 284, then I only got to ask Greg for 395. I was like, where are you getting these specific numbers? Just ask someone for $10 and you'll be good. We're all friends here, you know? I don't expect to get it back. I think that for the most part, the boom of the rat population is concerning, but then I read more about the story, and it turns out that it is cyclical. Every like 3 to 17 years, there's this huge boom in the rat population, and then there's a bust, you know? Kind of like what they thought would happen to New York in the pandemic, is like everyone's here and then no one's here, and then will people come back? And, you know, unlike the rats, we are back. I hope that for the sake of this little town that the rats disperse pretty quickly. Let me look at some of your specific. 154. Rumorville says 154. Milky has said $500, and that's a lot. It's not as specific as I was thinking of, but 445. We're getting some very. I'm thinking more the single digit, because the single digit is what's upsetting. If someone gives you a 3 or 4 digit number that's really specific, they've just read the bill to you and they want you to cover it, right? Like if someone's like, could I borrow $2,155? I'm like, oh, then you just need rent in New York. But if someone is like 68 cents for a hoagie in Philly. Yep. Sounds about right. Because that hoagie money, you almost there. You're touching on it anyway. That hoagie money is... I'm just going to start saying that now, hoagie money. Let me see. Okay. I think that for the most part, when I think of Australia, I do think of that resilience in the face of animals. I think about... how they've been able to keep things pretty peaceful there. You know, I know that every country has their problems, and some are bigger than others, and some pop up on the global stage sometimes. But for the most part, you don't really hear about too many huge things happening there, which is why I was so shocked at the next story. I was truly taken aback, because we've talked about the venomous spiders. We've talked about the rats and everything, but Flamin' Hot Doritos and Cheeto seasoning sparks workplace safety complaint. Now, who would have thought that among all of this wildlife and all of these other, even just the conditions, the sun in Australia is different. That's different sun. I've never been hit with sun like that. And then when I got there, people were like, oh, you need to, wear your sunscreen. You need to lather up, really, really lather up. And I'm not going to lie, I got cocky. I was like, y'all, I got melanin. All right, I got some built-in sunscreen in me right now. I soak up the sun. I don't just reflect and burn. And then sure enough, I took a beating on that first day. I was like, I grew up in Louisiana. I've lived in conditions where I'd have to go to work and it would be 114 degrees. And I've still never been hit with sun like that. That sun in Australia, it punches, it kicks, it chokes, it does full MMA. The sun in Australia is trained in jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. It has no problem busting you in the back of the head out of nowhere. You'll be wearing a hat and your hat will be too hot. So then when I saw this Flamin' Hot Cheetos story, I was genuinely blown away. Let me take you through a little bit of it. It comes to us from Sky News. Workers at a crisp factory, that crisp is what Australians call chips, have complained that a hot and spicy seasoning is affecting their health. A union is claiming the flaming hot seasoning used for Doritos and Cheetos products has caused a number of adverse effects, including sneezing, coughing, eye and skin irritation, and breathing difficulties. And I think that, I've always been pretty clear and pretty open who I'm on the side of when it comes to issues like this. I always want the worker and the union to take care of its workers, and the workers to be taken care of by the company and by their union, and always work in good enough conditions that you feel like you're not sacrificing portions of your life for your job, right? I was shocked though, because this is one of those moments, and I'm not proud of it, but sometimes you look at international stories as an American, as someone who lives in the States, and you get to this point where you puff your chest out a little bit. You really do, because then you hear about conditions like this where they're dealing with a lot with this flaming hot Cheetos, Doritos. The seasoning is like, it's stressing them out. It's getting them overheated and everything. And you think about, as an American, I live in this. This is like game time for me. As Americans, that flaming hot Cheeto, that's just spicy asbestos. Okay, we don't really have issues when it comes to these seasonings. We live with the dust on our fingers. The dust on the fingers is how you know how somebody's living. Like, really think about that, because dust outside of the home, when you see Cheeto dust on a man's fingers outside the home, he's not living well. He's going through something. It could be a divorce, could be some sort of separation. He might be unemployed, but we live with the tips of these fingers stained with the dust of Doritos and Cheetos, right? It's a marker, We lay it out all the time, and then we touch things and we touch ourselves, and the dust gets everywhere. So the factory conditions that they're talking about is how we live as, divorcees, as bachelors. A lot of men are living like this right now. And honestly, if you see someone that you're interested in with the dust on their fingers, even better on their chin, right? And they're just out in the world. They're not at home. They're not going to grab the mail real quick and going back inside. They're out with friends maybe, and you can see the dust on their fingers. This is when you shoot your shot. It really is, because they're clearly at a low point. They have not washed their hands since they left the house, because unless you see the Cheetos on their person right now, this dust is old. Let me see what y'all think about that. Write in the chat if you think that's when you should approach. Let me see. I tried all the other milks already. Might as well. Okay, that is about the spider story. I'm with you. I'll wait on some more replies to the Cheeto dust and Dorito dust, because I don't know. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that when you give off, I'll even tell you this. I've talked about it in stand-up before, but in earnest, when I was living in Chicago, I was having a rough time, and I was running for the bus, and I made it on the bus, and I just noticed someone that was giving me very judgy looks, horribly judgy looks, and it bothered me in the moment, to the point where I was almost like, "What are you looking at?" But I was like, "I don't want problems on a bus I had to run to get on. I'll let this go." And then this person, when the bus stopped and they got to their stop, they got up, and I saw Dorito dust on the back of their head, and I was like, "Who are you to judge me when there's full-on Dorito dust on the back of your head?" Because that means that you were eating Doritos so fast, so hard, that you broke a sweat and didn't even have time to lick your fingers before you wiped the back of your neck, and you're judging me. I'm just saying. We're going to move on now to Africa. In Africa, I saw this story, and it's from The Guardian. And I did not know about this fear, but everything in the story does pretty much check out. Okay, so a man, this is actually admittedly a little bit old, but it's new to me, and I'm hoping it'll be new to you. I just want to be transparent. A 71-year-old man lives 55 years in isolation for fear of women, which seems extreme. But I do want to talk about it for a second, because when I read the article, it said that he began isolating himself at the age of 16, living in confinement, where he did everything from sleeping to cooking. This fear, known as gynophobia, is considered a specific phobia, but not officially recognized as a disorder, right? And that led me, honestly, ladies, please hear me. He started isolating at 16. As men, some of us have brittle spirits. All right. Some of us only have one asking you to dance in us. So please be gentle with our hearts. Cause like you never know. We might walk off into the sun. You know, some people only have 2 requests for lunch dates in them. And if they don't go, if they don't happen, I think that there are some people who are like, well, that was it. I gave it a good run. And I think that's a mistake. I honestly think that, you know, you should keep trying. If you fall off, you should get back on. Like I'm not advocating for this sort of thing. I'm just saying it can happen. Clearly, we don't know what happened before this. You know, my man could have thought he was a player in the making, and then he approached somebody, and he was like, "Hey, would you like to dance with me?" As she did that thing. She sort of looked him up and down and was like, huh. And then he was like, you know what? That was enough. I think I'm gonna live by myself until I'm old enough for a reporter to come to my house and be like, why are you like this? Let's see. Neighbors have tried to help him, but are only able to offer items from a distance as he does not allow them to get close. One neighbor was quoted saying, surprisingly, even though he is afraid of women, we are the ones who help him get food and other basic necessities, a female neighbor close by said. That's kind of how it goes. I'm not going to lie. That makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of people, in my opinion, who, for whatever reason, sort of like shun or don't allow women in, but then will accept the help. You know what I mean? We'll accept the like, well, if you already cooked, like I'm not going to turn down a home cooked meal, right? Let's see. Despite his isolated life, he seems content and expresses that he has no desire for female company, although he will take parcels. Meanwhile, specific phobias like this can develop during childhood and adolescence. Nobody really knows where any of it came from. He didn't go into detail about it, but it did sort of shock me. 55 years. I think after 10 years of being a bachelor and living by yourself, you really don't need to worry that much about women trying to get at you. At a certain length of being single, you're good, man. They're not coming around anymore. Let's see in the chat if you have any thoughts. Always please put your thoughts as I'm talking about something. If there's something that comes to mind or anything, I love to read what y'all are thinking. See, someone's like, who hurt him? Yes, I also thought about that. The first 100 no's get you closer to that one yes. That is true. That is true, Jordan Wolf. He's just like me, for real, for real. Yeah, I've thought about this too. So in my mind, when he's like, I isolated at 16, I've been alone ever since. This is what most of us think is going to happen, right? You dating somebody in high school, it's going well. And then out of nowhere, she might sit you down and be like, listen, we're both going to college and we're going to different schools. I don't think it'll work. You do get to this place of like, all right, I guess it's me by myself now. I guess I'll never love again. You know? And then you go to college or you go out in the world and you meet other people. As long as you keep trying, good things can keep happening. And let me see. If someone says, "Aw, snap," wipes their fingers, maybe they still got their life in order. Yes. For the Cheeto story, that is true. If you catch someone in real time in public wiping their hands quickly of the dust when you approach, they do have the wherewithal and the sense to know that these are not the fingers that I extend for a handshake, right? That no one else wants my dust on them. Okay. Let's see where we're at. Our next story is actually all the way back home. We're moving to the U.S., where we are. Well, when I say we, I mean the studio, not necessarily you watching, even though a lot of you are tuning in from around the country, which I appreciate. So, a Russian man who flew on Los Angeles flight without passport or ticket is charged with a federal crime. Now, I thought that we were done having stories like this, personally. Like, when you go to the airport, the rudeness with which TSA hits you makes you feel like they must not let anything get past them. You know, like whenever they're going through your bag, or they're like, why do you have water? Why do you drink water? Why do you, what's this thing with you and water? Are you trying to make a water bomb or something? I think that the level of intensity has now almost lulled people into a false sense of security. Because when I was looking at the story, I was astounded. I'm gonna butcher the name, and I really don't mean to, but here we go. Sergei Vladimir Orovich Akagava. That's definitely wrong. I could hear it being wrong when I said it. I could hear it sounded wrong coming out of my mouth. All I know I got right is the Sergei part. Arrived at Los Angeles International Airport on November 4th via Scandinavian Airlines. That's the problem. Scandinavian Airlines Flight 931 from Copenhagen. A U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer could not find Okagawa on the flight manifest or any other incoming international flight, according to the complaint filed November 6th in Los Angeles federal court. So this is maybe some of the issue. Maybe in the States we do have it on lock. Maybe it's these Scandinavian countries being all polite and nice and good people and stuff that they don't have the tenacity. What we need to do is we need to send some of our TSA agents over there, bring some of their TSA agents over here. Everybody would be happy. Really think about that, because then we would get some of these nice Scandinavian tall, hey, how you doing? How's your day? At our TSA, because we're already trained as Americans. We know, go ahead and put it in the bin, don't put it in the bin, take off your shoes, don't take off your shoes. Like, per airport, per line, we know what to do. So now we could receive a little bit of the politeness. We don't really need to be bashed at 6 a.m. when we're just trying to get on a flight over to Hawaii, right? And I think that clearly, they need some of these Detroit TSA officers getting in people's business, getting in their face, asking them extra questions, you know, maybe roasting them while they're walking through the metal detector, making them walk through the metal detector again for no reason, telling them that they've been randomly selected for a pat down just because they seem a little suspicious. They need more of that there. We need more of them here. Let's heal the world. He was charged with being a stowaway on an aircraft and pleaded not guilty in a December 5th arraignment. A trial was scheduled for December 26th. A federal public defender representing Okagawa, who remained in custody Tuesday, did not immediately return a phone message from the Associated Press seeking comment. So we don't know what's going to happen with this yet, but it is crazy because I didn't know there were still, just like with praying for the wind in the previous stories, I didn't know you could still be a stowaway. Like, stowaway seems like such a pirate word. It seems like something that we don't even talk about or do anymore. Stowaway seems like, yes, you jumped on when you weren't supposed to jump on, but you also might have scurvy. So we're going to move on to our next story, which is a car-sized tumbleweed made quite a scene on a California highway. So this story comes from NPR, and it's following a huge tumbleweed. You can see it in the screen above me. And when I first saw it, I didn't even think it was a tumbleweed. I thought it looked more like Cousin It got a BBL, because that's a thick. That's one of the thickest tumbleweeds I've ever seen, but it does look like an animal. It looks like an animal that would be in Australia, right? So a giant tumbleweed, roughly the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, was spotted hurtling its way down a 4-lane road in California this week. The jaunty brown bundle of brush was captured on video and posted on Tuesday on X, formerly known as Twitter, where it was gathered a number of fans who have compared it to a giant hairball, belly lint gone wild, and the critters from the 1986 sci-fi horror movie. Okay, I guess I don't know what that is, but I think that for the most part, it made me think about tumbleweeds. And I don't know about y'all. I don't know the background, the ethnicity of everybody tuning in, but I personally have never wanted to be black where tumbleweeds are. That feels it, because when you see a tumbleweed, because remember, a tumbleweed is just weeds that have so little going on that they can get together and chat and roll together themselves. There should be buildings in the way. There should be trees. There should be something to where a tumbleweed never gets to tumbleweed. Does that make sense? And in places with the tumbleweeds, a lot of them still think that they're like either in a Western or living back then. Like a tumbleweed, the conditions for a tumbleweed feel too dry to me. You know? It feels like the earth there is ashy, if that makes sense. I feel like the climate is clearly too dry, and it's so dry it'd be very easy to burn across, if you know what I mean. I've just never been to a place with tumbleweeds where I also felt welcome. Just doesn't seem to happen. Also, I got to back up real quick. That's my bad. As I'm thinking about it now with the Russian guy on the flight, it does feel like he's a bad spy. That's a bad spy. That's a dude who had the spy skills to get on the plane, but didn't have the hookups, the network, or the spy skills to get through customs. Like he was able to stow away on the plane. He was able to get that loose seat that no one had bought. But then at customs, he kind of just fell apart, kind of just started answering honestly, like, yeah, I came from Denmark. You got me. That's my bad. Let me know what you guys think. If this is a spy that we've just caught because he wasn't one of the good ones, or if something else happened. I want to look at the chat real quick to see some of your thoughts. Let's see. Callie has tumbleweeds too, my God. Yes, that's fair. That's fair. I know that there are places that have tumbleweeds that I've even been before, but I'm just saying how I feel. Like I'm saying, like when I see the tumbleweed, there's a part of me that goes, uh-oh. You know what I mean? It's like when you see the beginning of a horror movie, and in the horror movie, something will happen that is a clear and present warning to the person watching that the actors in the movie don't seem to notice, right? So it'll be like a movement of a shadow in the background while they're just sitting on the couch laughing. So someone else is clearly in the house, and you're like, uh-oh. And they're like, oh, what a beautiful day. That's how I feel about tumbleweeds. So, okay. As we wrap up, we're going to go to the UK. We're going to end this thing in the UK because I found this story. I'm a little confused by it, but maybe we can figure it out together, okay? This is, once again, a Sky News story, and it says the causes behind beer goggles debunked by scientists. All right. I didn't know anything about beer goggles because I don't drink. Beer goggles are apparently when you look at a person and you are inebriated and they seem far more attractive to you than maybe you would find them if you were sober, right? And I don't know. I always thought, yeah, that must be a thing. That makes sense. A lot of people do things when they're drunk that they wouldn't do sober. You know, I've had people tell me stories that I'm like, I don't think you would have told me that if you were really paying attention to where you were and who I was and how well we know each other. You're really spilling it all out right now, and we just met, and I'm just drinking water, so I'm going to remember all this, right? Researchers from the University of Portsmouth, is that how you say it, Portsmouth, questioned 99 men and women aged 18 to 62 in a pub. So they went to the right place. They went to where it's all happening. They probably talked to somebody with beer goggles in that moment. They were probably trying to interview the person, and they were like, what are you doing later? They want to test and rate how people look to each other after a few drinks. But the study published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology found that while alcohol did impair face symmetry detection, which is why people thought that beer goggles would even be a thing, because we are, as people, are attracted to people that we find having symmetrical faces. Even though it did impair face symmetry detection, it did not influence judgments on attractiveness. And this is a real bombshell in bar science. Okay? I mean, I'm excited that I get to break it here now for you. You getting it here, and from Sky News, where I'm reading it from. But you getting it here. No one else is talking about this right now. That means that when you've had a few drinks and you find somebody attractive, that really is you. Don't blame the alcohol. Own up. Next day, truly own up that you found this person, you were into him. And I'm not judging. I think, if anything, we should be more into people. Everybody's always looking for red flags. We're all flawed. Let's do some yellow flags, because people talk about green flags. Let the alcohol be that yellow flag. Most of the beers are yellow in the glass. I also want to see, let me see, 1 second. I think that for the most part, the other thing that really shook me about this story is knowing it and still never having had a drink. So then that way, if I were to ever drink, I know now this is all on you, son. Every little bit of it. I want to see what you think in the chat, though. Let me know if you are as surprised by this as I am. All right. And our last story is, my favorite. I've saved truly, in my opinion, the best story for last, because I am a fan of this young man, and I am a fan of what he's doing for his sport. I think that all of it is phenomenal. I'm only going to say his name once, because I think I'm going to butcher it, and then I will go ahead and just call him by his nickname, because it's also dope. Luke Littler. It's either Littler or Littler, and I don't think it could be Littler. He also goes by Luke the Nuke. Luke the Nuke has taken the world of darts by storm, becoming the youngest person to play in a PDC World Championships. I believe PDC is like pub darts championship, but I could be wrong. He's played in the final at the age of 16. Home videos show him honing his skills from a young age, and he quickly climbed the non-professional ranks to make it to the PDC World Championship. He lost the final to the world number 1 Luke Humphreys. However, he firmly planted himself in the top 32, setting himself up well for the near future, which is incredible. You're 16 years old, you really like something, and you also become world class at it in, like, not necessarily no time, because if he's been playing since he was a little kid, it means that he probably has put, over a decade into the sport. Because there's these little videos you can look at, is from The Guardian, of him playing as a little kid and as a little baby. He's throwing darts and hitting the board. And now he's world class. The thing that shook me, though, is that Luke is 16. And that does not look 16. Do you know what I mean? And I'm once again, like I said, I am a fan of this young man or anything. So I'm not accusing. I'm just saying, is there a chance that there is some doping at play? To be looking this grown, this young. I don't even know how doping for darts would make sense. But that's a man. If I see Luke in the streets, I'm calling him sir. Easily. I was truly blown away by, I couldn't even think about, I was talking to a friend about it, and she said that maybe he looks so grown because they play darts in pubs in the UK. And so maybe he was just in pubs for so long, so often, that the pub started to rub off on him. So now he looks like he should be in the pub at 16. He looks like a grizzled pubian. He actually looks so much to me. Not only does he look grown, he looks like James Corden. Like that kid looked like if James Corden left his show, went back home, and was like, I'm into darts now, but I don't want a big scene. Let me get good. Let me show the world what I can do. So I'm going to go under a different name. I'm going to go by Luke. and I'm a rip the darts world up. And then maybe a couple years from now, I'll be like, y'all, I've been James the whole time. And this is not the first person that this has happened with. This is not the first athlete that's been a child that we've then questioned, you know? Does anybody remember this kid? Y'all remember him? Remember when everybody said he was 12 and then everybody else said, is he 12? Do y'all remember that? This is truly why. Okay, this kid, I'm willing to believe, look, everybody's different. I'm willing to believe that he's 12. I'm willing to believe that he's 12. But let's also address the 40-year-old in the room. Okay? Because he and Luke look more grown than I'll ever be. I'll never actually give off the man energy that they give off. Because my man in the football uniform, he looked like he should be in the Temptations. Like, he doesn't just look grown. He looks grown from before. Like he was snatching lunch money in the womb. And then Luke over here is also, I think this is, once again, I'm not a scientist. But I think that I wouldn't call it a condition because it's not a bad thing. They just mature faster. But there are some people that are 12, 16, there are some people who have what I call grown head. Okay? So they might even have a child's body. They may not be a big person of a tall stature, but they have the head of a grown man. And it calls their entire age into question. We see it in baseball all the time. There's little league players that you could swear are just short, grown men who have really honed all their motor skills. Tell me what you think in the chat, because I think that Luke and I think that my friend in the football, I think that they have grown head. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I applaud it. I wish I had it. Do you know I still got carded to get into movies when I was 22? Because people were like, no, you're a kid. You have the face of a child and you have the body of a toddler. We're not letting you in this movie. But I just want to thank every single one of you. Let me look at the chat real quick before we wrap up. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I appreciate y'all so much. I hope you had a great time. I love doing this for you, and I love, being able to like give you something hopefully more often that is that's a little bit different. And I appreciate your patience with me as I get better at it, and I hope that you're also having a great time. Let me know in the chat anytime you have thoughts or ideas based off of what I'm saying, and I'll get to it when I can. If you are looking to catch me on the road, I'm going to be in Montana this weekend. I'm going to be in New York City on January 15th. I am going to be in San Francisco on January 25th. But most importantly, you can still get tickets to me in West Nyack, New York, February 2nd to the 4th, and Burlington, Vermont, February 9th through the 10th. All other dates are on my website. I appreciate y'all so much. And until next time, have a great, great rest of the day. And I will have more good news